So we had a lot of support through the most recent lockdowns, not JobKeeper per se, but still supporting those households that had lost their jobs. What's been really interesting, though, is we've clearly maintained a connection between Australians and their employers. And this time around, we've seen employers start to rehire even before restrictions have actually eased. So that's a really encouraging sign.
So these jobs have been lost, 46,000 jobs lost. Economists had predicted that's how many jobs were actually going to be increased in the market. What's happened?
So forecasting is really tough, PK, and particularly when it comes to the jobs data. The standard error on the jobs data is 30,000 jobs per month. So economists got it wrong, but not quite as wrong as perhaps that headline number means. We also know there's a lot of technical things happening under the hood when we measure the labour market. One of the encouraging signs that perhaps hasn't been picked up so much is that we did see an increase in participation in the workforce. So that's Australians that had lost their jobs and hadn't been looking for another one during lockdown have started looking for jobs.
So do you expect that unemployment will rise further? The government's telling us that the economy is coming back. But what does today reveal? Is it an aberration, or should we expect this to become perhaps a trend?
So there's a few things we know and a few things we don't. The economy is coming back, and it's coming back faster than it did after the last lockdowns. We can see that in the fortnightly payroll data. So we expect that employment, the number of Australians that get a job in November, which is the next data read, will go up. And that's a really positive sign. But we're also expecting some of these Australians who haven't been looking for work or haven't been available for work because of things like homeschooling and the need to care for their children will also come back in. And that means the unemployment rate might stay around this 5 to 5.2 level for a couple of months while we get all of those people that start looking for jobs back into employment.
And what about job creation post-lockdowns? What do economists expect? What do you think now that we are being told that with high vaccination rates, lockdowns will be, perhaps a thing of the past?
Yeah, well, we're seeing that flow through into the decisions that businesses make about investing and hiring. So, as you said, when we lock down, some jobs are lost, and when we open up those restrictions, those jobs come back. But we are expecting the economy itself to create additional jobs. We're already seeing the payroll data show that the job creation is 2 times faster as the city comes out of lockdown than it did back in 2020. And all the leading indicators, things like job advertisements, job vacancies, employment intentions, unemployment expectations, are all pointing to ongoing strength in the labour market. I think we'll see an unemployment rate that reaches new multi-decade lows next year.
We've been talking about the gendered story here with unemployment and the participation rate. What can you tell us from today's figures?
Well, interestingly, the participation rate went up equally for men and for women in Australia. And that's very different from last year, and it's really encouraging. We talked last year a lot about the pink recession, and that seems to be less of an issue this time around. We do seem to be getting male and female jobs back. One area that we do need to watch, though, is for young Australians. We did see the youth unemployment rate increase in the month, and we know that a lot of young Australians have lost their jobs, and they may find it difficult to get back into a job that well matches their skills.
So obviously we have a pretty patchy story across the country because the economic situation is so different across the country. We also have a situation where, because of our border being closed for so long, we haven't really had that sort of skilled migrant intake, and there's been a discussion around that. Is right now a risky time to be letting people return, given we've seen a rise in unemployment? What does that tell us about sort of the positions that are there, the local labour market, and potential migrant labour that we might be bringing back in?
So I think, there's an issue around skilled migration, and there's also an issue around international students. And we often don't talk about that in terms of the labour market. They're actually a really big source of labour for some of the areas where we've got the biggest labour shortages. So retail, accommodation and food services, for example. So we do need to open our borders up so that we can fill all jobs, and also so that we can get the skills transfers that we need. We're seeing shortages in things like software programming programming engineers, for example, and we're not seeing a big enough flow through from our tertiary education sector to fill those roles. So my own view on the labour market is we need to pull every lever. We need to think about our education system, geographical and occupational mobility, and migration.